they followed the style guide to the T.
Wow.
They called us the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
They never used the M word, which,
Okay.
that's this podcast, right? But that's okay. We're about the people, right?
That's right.
The people can still be Mormons,
The
right?
people can still, we are under the umbrella.
It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing.
But
as the cold winds of winter sweep in, there's nothing like the warmth of a comforting cup to help you slow down and unwind. This is the season. Let Postum be your cozy companion. Made from roasted grains, Postum is caffeine-free and rich with a smooth roasted flavor. It's the perfect drink for those quiet, chilly mornings. Whether you're curled up with a good book, sharing a laugh with loved ones, or simply watching the snow fall outside, a cup of Postum is the moment you have been waiting for.
Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Taffy edition, which stands for Tiffany and Friends for You. I am your host, Tiffany Hales, and I am here tonight with none other than the individual who came up with the Taffy acronym for me, David Larson.
woo!
David,
Yay!
thank you so much for joining me tonight.
I am glad to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate it. With your new travel schedule post-COVID, it is sometimes hard to pin you down.
It is, yeah. I'm an engineer. If you don't remember, this is my third time on the show, or second, depending on how you look at it. And so, for the past 23 years or so, I have probably spent a lot of time overseas. But COVID hit, and then it kind of slowed way down. Well, a few changes happened at work this year, and we're producing stuff in new places that we haven't produced stuff in before. So I've had opportunities to go to some new places.
Other than China.
I've been going back to China.
Yes.
I actually hadn't been to China for like 7 years.
Really?
And I went back for the first time a couple months ago, and I'll be going back next month. And I've also been to Thailand 4 times in the last year, and I'll be going again next month to Thailand. So.
Well, and you've been to Japan too.
I did. Yeah, I've been to Japan. I've been to a lot of places a lot of times, but
because you brought me that really good haichus from Japan that were like the tangerine lime.
Yeah.
That I am still craving. That are a Japan exclusive only.
They are Japan exclusive.
So makers of haichus, get on board and get those into the United States.
Get them here.
I don't know what our tariffs are with Japan right now, but they can't be as high as they are with China.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, it depends on the day of the week.
Yep. So.
All right. So what else have you been up to besides traveling all over the world?
Well, my wife and I have been empty nesters for a few years, and that has come to a crashing halt recently.
Don't you love it when adult children return?
They return. Well, bless their hearts. My third daughter and her husband, they've been married a year. They graduated from college, and they made big plans because my daughter is the kind that's like, go big or don't go.
That's exactly how I was going to describe her. She is all in.
Yep, she's all in. So she got a degree, and now she wants to do a master's degree, and they're going to do that in the Netherlands.
Wow.
So next fall in August they'll be moving, but they're with us for the summer, saving a little money, living at home, and
cramping your style.
Cramping my style a little bit. We're still getting used to each other, but we'll get there, and it's a few months. We can do anything for a few months. And
that's very true.
We love them. They're awesome.
That's very true.
It's still an adjustment. So
I completely agree. I have to say, honestly, and I'm not, my youngest graduates from high school this week.
Right.
So, but I've actually kind of been an empty nester for a couple of years because she has lived with her dad during high school. So she's just kind of been more of a visitor. We do have 2 adult children that live at home right now, but they are pretty relatively self-sufficient. But I have to tell you, the best thing that ever happened to my marriage was being an empty nester.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
It really, really is. I'm like, wow, I can have a conversation with you, and I actually really like you with my husband and hang out with him. So
now, were you worried at first?
I wasn't super worried. And the reason I wasn't super worried is I'm already pretty independent as it is. And I have always worked. So I think that maybe in some regards makes the transition a little easier because it wasn't like, oh my gosh, my job was to raise the kids and now the kids are raised. What do I do with the rest of my life?
Mhm.
I did not have that as an issue that I had to deal with.
Right.
But and I'm sure that you and your wife found this to be true. Those kids take up a lot of time.
Yeah. And a little bit of moolah.
Exactly. So, I mean, honestly, that's been the best thing about being an empty nester. Is I'm like, holy cow, I have all of this time that I can do things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because when we were in the thick of things, it was work, church, taking care of kids. There was minimal time to do things that I wanted to do or things that my husband wanted to do or things that we wanted to do together. And so that's
good.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
My wife had a slight bit of worry, probably because she had been a full-time
Yeah.
mom and she wasn't working, but
then she got herself her job.
she got a good job, and we decided we like each other after all. It's not like we didn't, but
I know.
we adjusted quickly and we love it.
Exactly.
And we'll love being with our adult kids for a couple months, and then we'll love being alone again.
Exactly.
It'll be good.
That's how I feel about my two that are home right now. Is I'm just, again, I don't have the responsibility of the day-to-day stuff because they're adults. They work, they get up, they do things. But I am trying to just savor the season of being able to enjoy them at home. So.
All right.
Well, shall we do some stories since that's what we're here for tonight?
Let's do some.
Okay. Well, as you know, last weekend was Mother's Day. Now, I am not going to talk about what our ward did for Mother's Day. Of course, you are very familiar with what our ward did for Mother's Day. And I know you're disappointed about that.
It's all right.
But it is historically that Ariane and I talk about this together.
I don't want to get in the way of that.
You don't want to get in the middle of Ariane and I. So
No.
We'll record in 2 weeks and I'll talk about Mother's Day because our ward changed it up this year.
Yes.
It was not what we had done in the past. And I will just say, when I became aware that it was not what we had done in the past, because in the past the Relief Society had taken control of this situation, control was stripped from the Relief Society, and I will just say I was a bit nervous.
I am sure you were not the only one.
I was not the only one. I can safely say the whole entire Relief Society presidency was a bit nervous. So I am just going to tease it with that. And then if you want to know what my ward did, you will have to tune in 2 weeks when I record with Ariane, and Ariane and I will swap Church Mother's Day stories.
And it'll be worth it.
It will be worth it. So anyway, but before we get into this story, I'll just ask you really quick, what did you do for Mother's Day? Or maybe rather, what did your kids do for your wife for Mother's Day?
Well, I had 2 out of 4 at home.
Okay.
And so we just did kind of the basic, went to church.
Yep.
And we fixed her dinner. And the married ones went and spent some time with the in-laws. And the rest of us, we stayed home and we played games. And Mom didn't have any responsibilities all day for the most part, and it was awesome.
That sounds like a perfect day for your wife.
Yeah.
And I know how much she loves to play games. So mine was really low-key as well. My husband cooked me dinner, and I didn't have all the kids. We had part of the kids. But here's the best thing that happened on Mother's Day. I got a nap.
Ooh.
I cannot tell you the last time on a Sunday that I've gotten a nap because it's just been that long. And it was kind of refreshing to lie on the couch and just have a little snooze.
Good for you.
So
you deserve it.
All right. Well, let's talk about. We're gonna lead off tonight with a Mother's Day story, simply because that is the most recent church event that we have had, and this was a Mother's Day story that was in the Deseret News, and it came out, of course, on Mother's Day, and it is about a woman by the name of Heather Olmstead. Now, if you follow BYU sports, which I know, David, you are an avid follower of BYU sports.
I am.
If you follow BYU sports, then you would know that she is the women's volleyball coach.
Correct.
Okay. And her brother Sean is actually the men's volleyball coach. And they come from a volleyball family.
I should say so.
So that is just kind of her background. But before we get into that, we have to talk about what occurred before Heather was even born. Okay. So Heather's mother is named Trudy. And Heather's mother and father were I can't remember what kind of athletes they were, but they were very much athletic, and they were a volleyball family. And they were living in, of course, San Diego, capital of volleyball. And this was 45 years ago. So Sister Olmsted, Heather, the volleyball coach, is 45 years old. So at that point in time, her parents, who are Trudy and let's see if I can find Dad's name. I know Dad's name is here. If I can find it.
I'm trying to remember
Let's
it too.
see. Rick is Dad's name. So Trudy and Rick are living in San Diego. They have 3 kids. They find out that she is pregnant with a 4th. They are very excited about this. And then she starts to, the mom, Trudy, she starts to not feel so hot. She's not feeling very well, and she doesn't know what's going on. So she goes to see the doctor, and they discover that she has a lump in her right lung. And they tell her this lump needs to be removed, because if you don't remove this lump, you're not going to live. She also finds out at that same time that, she knew she was pregnant, that she was pregnant with twins. So she's pregnant with twins. She has this lump. They say the lump needs to be removed. And they also tell her she needs to abort these twins. Okay. Now, this is 1980. So this was a number of years ago. She's 30 years old. And so she is also told that she has, that this was so life-threatening that she had 3 months to live. And so she's told she has to abort these twins. And her response is, no. We're going to find an answer. There is no way I'm going to abort 2 babies. Right. And so they go on to kind of try and, figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And so her father, Trudy's father, is a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Anderson. And he had just been called to be the first president of the soon to be dedicated Japan Tokyo Temple. So Brother Anderson and his wife go to Salt Lake to prepare for their upcoming temple assignment. Again, this is the early 80s. And they're in the Salt Lake Temple, and they happen to run into a family friend, a hometown family friend in the Salt Lake Temple, who is none other than Danzel White Nelson, the first wife of President Nelson. And so they're all excited to see each other, long lost friends. And really, there is nothing better than running into long lost friends in the temple.
It's great.
It's really fun. It kind of makes me, every time that happens, I just feel like, oh, this is what it's going to be like when we get to the other side and we're in this wonderful place and we run into people that we've lost contact with, yet we still just dearly love them. Yeah. Anyway, so Danzel was there for a wedding of one of her daughters. And so, of course, President Nelson, who at that point in time was Dr. Nelson, because he had not been called to the Quorum of the 12 yet, happened to be with her. And so, in the chatting that takes place at the temple, Brother Anderson explained to then Dr. Nelson about what was going on with his daughter and just how concerned they were about his daughter. So Dr. Nelson said, I want to see Trudy's records, including her x-rays and all of her doctor's notes. So immediately, Brother Anderson went to California, got everything, and then actually flew back to Utah and hand delivered the records to Dr. Nelson. Now, this is where the story gets really cool. So he says, or Trudy, the mom says, Dr. Nelson put them on his chest and told my dad, the Lord and I will talk about this tonight. I will call you in the morning. So I just thought, wow, because you hear him in talks and things that he gives all the time, talking about conversations he has with the Lord. Apparently, which again shouldn't be surprising to any of us, he's been conversing with the Lord for quite some time. Shocker, I know. So the next day, Dr. Nelson calls Brother Anderson, and he says, the first thing he says, do not abort those babies. The Lord will decide what happens with them. So again, no guarantee that the babies were going to survive, but just you're not going to abort them, and you're going to lay this at the Lord's feet and let him decide. And then he says to Trudy, he tells Trudy she does not have cancer, but the tumor is life-threatening and it did need to be removed. And he agrees to perform the operation. So they all pack up in the car from San Diego, Trudy and Rick, her parents, along with their 3 kids. Now, Trudy and Rick at this point in time had never been sealed. And so they decide we're heading to Utah. And so we are going to take out our endowments and get sealed to our 3 children. So they do that. And then they leave the luncheon after their sealing and they immediately head to the hospital where Trudy is admitted. So President Nelson, now Trudy doesn't know this is where the story in the Deseret News takes a turn. The reporter goes to Sherry Dew's book on President Nelson and kind of gets his perspective on it. And he went in to perform the surgery and he says, the tumor was so close to the heart and I did not have a clamp narrow enough to put a clamp on the artery and still have space for the cutting blade of the scissors. Therefore, the pulmonary artery had to be cut without being clamped. My only option was to put a finger in the artery to stop the blood and keep my finger there until I was able to suture the artery closed. Can you even imagine? Here, let me just put my finger in your artery while I do my other stuff. Anyway, and he says, all the time I kept thinking 3 lives are depending on my finger. Anyway, the operation required the removal of Trudy's right lung, which was successful, and her life was spared. And 5 months later, those 2 twins were born. One of those twins is Heather, who is the BYU volleyball coach, and the other is her sister, Nicole.
That's awesome.
And so that was one of the reasons that the Deseret News had interviewed Trudy for this special Mother's Day story was, she has a unique perspective on being a mother and then to have been a mother to, all of her children are successful, but really to have 2 children that are top level, volleyball coaches. And as you know, both the men's team and the women's team are highly successful at BYU volleyball coaches. And of course, they interview Heather and she says, yes, I've heard this story. And when she first got the opportunity to meet President Nelson, because I think it was about 4 years after that he was called as an apostle, he pulled out a journal and gave her the details of the operations and said, look, I saved 3 lives. And he told her that her mother was an angel. And she said, to think that she was an angel here on earth, she said, changed my relationship with my mother. Anyway, and so their family is just really close and they have this special bond with President Nelson. And I just thought it was a fantastic feel-good Mother's Day story.
It was a great story.
So, all right. Well, we've got some temple news. And I am going to let you cover some temple news tonight.
Okay. I've got a couple of temple stories here and they're a little bit unique. With 300 and getting close to 400 temples built or announced or under construction, it's like we get temple news every week now. It seems like
we could do a whole podcast.
Yeah.
There could be a weekly podcast just on temple construction building updates.
There probably is one.
That's what I was about to say. There probably is one that we're not aware of.
So we're not that one, but I did find an article, and what was unique about it to me is this was on the Lagos, Nigeria temple.
Okay.
And the thing that was unique about it is the article was from theguardian.ng.
Oh.
So this is the local Nigerian version of The Guardian, which is the London newspaper, right?
Okay.
So this is the the Nigerian version of The Guardian. And what struck me about it is, A, the article was clearly written for the local audience.
Okay.
B, it was really accurate in the way it talked about the church.
Okay.
It talked about it positively.
Which sometimes the media does not get it correct.
Spoiler alert, it may not be correct in the media.
Oh, okay.
Okay, spoiler. But it was in this one. And third, they followed the style guide to the T.
Wow.
They called us the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
They never used the M word, which,
Okay.
that's this podcast, right? But that's okay. We're about the people, right?
That's right.
The people can still be Mormons,
The
right?
people can still, we are under the umbrella.
It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing.
But for the style guide and newspaper articles, we prefer not to use it. And
Exactly.
the Guardian Nigerian version followed it to a T. So the first thing that I thought was a little funny, though, is it talks about where the temple is going to be built. And it says it's going to be built in the highbrow Ikoyi area of Lagos. So
Oh.
apparently there is a highbrow area of Lagos.
Well, do we consider that to be the fancy schmancy hoity-toity area, maybe?
I would suspect that is what it is.
Okay.
I didn't know. I mean, I have never been to Africa. I would love to go someday, but apparently there is a highbrow area of Lagos.
Well, good to know.
All right. It gives a great explanation of what temples are for,
Okay.
the ordinances and the ceilings and stuff. It made a very strong point to list all of the Nigerian dignitaries
Oh.
that were in place. And it mentioned some of the church authorities
Okay.
that were there.
Okay.
But for example, we have special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Christian Religion, Very Reverend Bukola Adeleke. He represents the governor. He commended the church for its commitment to spiritual development, expressing confidence in the successful completion of the project. He says, "This foundation is built on solid rock, and we believe God will see it through to completion. The church has been a vessel for spreading the gospel and winning souls, and we encourage them to continue in this divine mission."
Well, that is just a lovely thought.
Yeah, and that's from the
Wow.
non-member government official attending this thing. So.
Which is fantastic because a lot of the stories we have been covering here lately, especially here on TWIM, we've had government officials who haven't had such
Weren't
kind
quite as
words
excited about the
to
temple, were
say about temples being built.
Right. Now, to be fair, this temple was announced in 2018.
Oh, okay.
So it took 7 years to get here.
Okay.
I imagine there was some negotiating
Finagling,
along the way,
yeah.
but according to this article, everything's good. And the church in Nigeria has 233,000 members.
So is this a temple that President Monson announced, or is this a temple that Hinckley announced? Do we know, or not?
President
Hinckley,
Nelson. Yes, this is
Okay.
one of the early Nelson
Okay,
temples.
one of the early Nelson temples.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. So in 2018, right when
Wow.
President Nelson was starting.
awesome.
So
okay,
that's Nigeria.
give us our next temple one.
Our next one. Now this is just a little bit personal for me because
Okay,
it's we talked in the intro about how often I've traveled
to Asia.
to Asia, and this is for the Singapore temple.
Okay,
And I love Singapore. Let me just tell you how much I love Singapore. I have been to Singapore between 25 and 30 times
wow.
for a week or two at a time. So
Okay,
probably maybe maybe 6 months and a year of my life has been spent in Singapore.
so what is it that you appreciate about Singapore? What do you like about Singapore?
Well, there's a lot of things. First of all, if you're just getting used to Asia, Singapore is fantastic because it's got a lot of blended Asian culture,
Okay.
and everybody speaks English
Oh, okay.
with fun accents.
Okay, okay,
Because it's everybody's second language.
okay.
Not everybody, hardly anybody's
Okay.
first language, but everybody's second language.
So at least communicating in Singapore is
No
reasonable.
problem. No
Okay.
problem if you're an American.
Okay.
And now, second of all, the people are great. I love
Okay.
the people. The food is fantastic. There's so much yummy, again, kind of Asian fusion.
Okay.
They have these crab dishes that are to die for with
Okay.
spicy. Oh, I just love them. So anyway, I've been to Singapore many times. I've been to church in Singapore many times. I love Singapore. I love the people there.
Now, when
It's
you
great.
go to church in Singapore, what language are you going to?
There's mostly English. but
Okay.
You can go. There's a Mandarin branch, and over time there's probably a Malaysian
Okay.
branch. So the mission in Singapore covers Singapore and Malaysia.
Okay.
So there's Malay-speaking missionaries, English, Chinese.
Okay.
You get all types. So the thing is, though, within the Singapore temple, and this is for the groundbreaking.
Okay.
All right.
So they're just doing
They've
the ground-
announced the groundbreaking. It's going to be June 28th of this year.
Okay.
One of the area presidency will preside.
So get your tickets to Singapore if you
Sure.
wanted to go to the
If you wanna
groundbreaking.
Go to the groundbreaking. I'll probably now if I can finagle it to go to the dedication, that would be awesome.
Okay.
But,
See if you can get a work trip there.
that's right. So in Singapore, though, there's only like 3,000 members of the church,
Okay.
and I know some people here, in the more densely populated membership areas of the church might wonder, well,
Why do you get
why
a
do you get a
temple?
temple if there's only 3,000? Well, let me share a little story with
Okay.
you about why these little temples in far-flung places matter. So
Okay.
we mentioned my trips to Thailand.
Yes.
So my second time I went to Thailand in last October. I went for 3 weeks. It was a
Ooh.
slog. It was a long trip.
Ooh.
But I did have the chance. I knew I was going to be there for so long, so I work about 2 hours outside of Bangkok. But for the
Okay.
weekend, I went back to Bangkok, and I had made before I left an appointment at the Bangkok Thailand Temple.
Okay.
That temple is only like a year old, maybe a
Okay.
year and a half by
So
now.
were you kind of excited to be able to get to go to the temple in Bangkok?
Super excited. So when I travel, there's two things I love to do.
Okay.
Two places I love to go:
Okay.
church and grocery stores.
I can really appreciate that.
Yeah, because church, you meet awesome people. You see
Yeah.
how the church runs, and grocery stores, you see what the food's like. You
Yeah.
can try new things, and
Yeah.
and it's you just spend however much you want,
See,
right?
every
or
time
how little you want.
every time I hear the word Bangkok, I think of that song from the '80s, "One Night in Bangkok."
Oh yeah,
That's
there's that in Bangkok too, but
that's not the vibe.
you
you're
got to
going
know where
for.
to look, and I don't look. So yeah.
That is a wise choice on
Yeah.
your part. Stick to church
Stick
and
to
stick
church.
to grocery
So
stores.
anyway, I go to the Bangkok temple and I find my way in and get guided. The people are nice. The session, I did an endowment session.
Okay.
It is done in Mandarin
Okay.
audio because about 20 ladies from China have flown down and they're going
Okay.
to the temple. So the majority of the speakers in that session were Mandarin speaking.
Okay. So did you have English?
I had English headphones and we had subtitles too. The subtitles were Thai.
Oh.
So I had Mandarin audio, Thai subtitles, and I'm listening in English on my headphones.
Oh my gosh, that had to have been a trip.
It was awesome.
Okay.
It was awesome. And I'm walking, so I'm done. I'm walking out back into the hall, and when the temple worker sees me, he comes up, beckons me over, and he says, "Do you want to do some ceilings?" I'm like,
Now, are you like
Sure.
Are you like the only American white guy in
there
there?
might have been one or two others.
Okay.
But yeah, we were a minority for sure.
Okay.
So he just happened to see me, and he beckons me, "You want to do some ceilings?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to do some ceilings." So I went in, and there was some of the same Chinese ladies, and there was some Thai people, and between Thai and English and language cards in Mandarin that the Chinese patrons were able to read as the officiators either speaking Thai or English, we got through some ceilings.
Wow.
Again, it was awesome. So then the capper is the next day I go to church. There's an
Okay.
English speaking ward in Bangkok.
Now, let me interrupt you before you go to church because I have a question that I wanted to ask
Okay.
before we leave the temple.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Even though I know this is tied into the temple. Do you bring your temple clothes with you on the trip, or do you just rent them at the temple? How does that work?
When I'm on traveling on business, I rent.
Okay.
And that's the thing with where there's few members and they know people are coming from long distances,
They're
they will
gonna-
rent clothing.
That's
It's
what I
not
figured.
like the Utah and Idaho ones where
Exactly.
they encourage you to get your own.
Where they get a little gruffy if you go down and go, well, my pants don't fit. Let me borrow yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
no, you can rent, and I do check that on the website before
Okay.
I go, but make an appointment.
Okay, sorry. I just, having done 5 years in the laundry at the Meridian Temple, I am very curious about other temples
Yes.
and where is it acceptable to rent clothing and where is the expectation that you pack your own?
Thailand acceptable.
Okay, all
Okay.
right. Now back to your church story.
So go to church the next day. It's one of those properties where the temple is like right here, and then 30 feet across the courtyard is the
Okay.
chapel, right? It's all on one plot of land.
Okay.
And so I go right back, and second hour Sunday school, and we're talking about, Book of Mormon, whatever.
Okay.
And this gentleman raises his hand, and he starts talking, and then the guy speaking next to me, who's in the ward, he goes, "By the way, this guy is like the original Thai member who joined back in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
So he's got some history. Well, he's a temple worker.
he's got some history and
He's
street
got some
cred.
history, and he's a temple worker. And he says, this week in the Thailand temple, we did ordinances in 22 languages.
Wow.
And that's when it hit me that, I had to go through an immigration process to go to Thailand. So I had to look up the visa requirements, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Thailand is one of the most liberal countries in the world when it comes to letting foreigners from just about anywhere in. So
Oh, really?
China,
Okay.
Russia, places that are currently on the naughty list
Yeah,
in the political sense for the world.
Yeah, you don't want to go there, list.
Right. So they can get into Thailand
Wow.
without advanced paperwork.
So could you get into Thailand without advanced paperwork, or did you have?
I can now.
Okay.
They changed the rules, but for
Okay.
a while I couldn't.
Okay.
But only because I wasn't a tourist. I was going on business.
Oh.
If I was going as a tourist, I could get right in. You
Got
you
it.
could go say I'm here for the beach, and they'd let you right in.
Got it. Okay.
They've changed it. I can get in as a business person now
Okay.
too. But yeah, so anyway, so that's where it struck me that wow, all these people are coming from all over the world, India, Russia, China, they're building one in Cambodia, but for now the Cambodians have to go there
Uh-huh.
and Vietnam, all these
Wow.
places, they can get into Thailand and they're going to the temple. And so these little temples in these places, they draw the saints from all over, and everybody can be blessed.
Exactly. So that is presumably what will happen with this new temple in Singapore.
Singapore will be another opportunity for people in these far-flung countries to get to the temple more easily.
So what are the visa requirements in Singapore? Is it easy to get into Singapore?
Very easy.
Oh, okay.
For an American, for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was great.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh,
Quick,
now we have a funny bishopric
a
story.
quick one. So you'll never believe this, but there was a new bishopric sustained last weekend. Can you believe that?
You've got to be kidding me.
Unbelievable.
There was a new bishopric.
There was. And it was so important that it made the news in Peachtree City, Georgia. And that's why it struck me is when I'm trolling for articles on the interwebs,
Uh-huh.
this article pops up from the Peachtree, the Fayette County Citizen in Georgia. And you got to see it on there. Did you ever look at it on your PC screen?
I did not look at it
Their
on my
font
PC.
is like huge. And it's like,
Oh.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announces new bishop in Peachtree City. And I'm like, yeah! Woo!
Clearly it's a slow news day in Peachtree City.
Well, anyway, but again, similar to the Nigeria story, this is the Deep South, right?
Okay. Bible
And
Belt.
Bible Belt, Deep South, Georgia. And they nailed it as far as style guide and talking about a church. You know, it talks about the lay ministry and how we're volunteers. We don't request specific positions except for when we do. And
That's a whole discussion for another
anyway, yeah.
podcast.
But it talks about that. And once again, only the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Wow.
Saints mentioned in the article. So either a member wrote the article, sent it in, and they published it, or possibly a member submitted the idea of writing the article, they agreed, and they sent someone out, or somewhere in between there. But
Well, I'm sure if you go on the church's website, obviously they have a guide for the
they have a
media.
style guide. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean everybody follows it.
Oh, well, that's exactly right. But what I was going to say is perhaps if it wasn't written by a member, that they went to the style guide and went to that to find out more information to be able to be accurate in their article.
Right. So I'm sure this podcast is huge in Peachtree City, Georgia. So
I'm sure it is.
shout out to Peachtree City and congratulations to
On your new bishopric.
Bishop Stan Johnson and his counselors.
Awesome.
Their picture is large and prominent on the website.
Okay. All right. I've got the next story. Now, we are recording on the evening of Thursday, May 15th, 2025. This was a long-awaited historic day
Oh my gosh.
in reality television.
Oh,
For those individuals who are fans of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, all 10 episodes of season 2 dropped today.
yay.
Please try.
Can I just say, let me just pause.
Okay, please.
I have my methods of searching for articles,
Okay.
and one of the keywords I type in is Mormon,
Yes.
and then I search for news within the last 24 hours. I do it every
Yes.
day to make sure I get the freshest stuff. And when I search for that word this week, it's like nonstop. Here come the secret wives. Here's where they're getting their swig. Here's the truth about the swing parties. Here's this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So just full disclosure, this is about 18 zip codes away from anything I'm even remotely interested. Take it away, Tiffany.
So I first covered this story with Georgia. Georgia is our English Rose that I sometimes record with. I had not watched it. She had watched the first couple of episodes. And so I said, okay. Or maybe I had watched it and only watched the first episode. I don't remember. I just remember watching the first episode going, I can't with this. And then I was like, okay, I'm at least going to watch the second episode. The second episode was far better than the first episode. I don't know if the first episode was a pilot or what it was, or they were trying to get their groove. And so by then I was engaged and I did watch, I think there were 6 episodes from last season. I did watch it. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I'm on the fence about whether or not I'm going to watch it. I mean, I really did like it last year, but I thought that they were probably relatively genuine last year. They have gotten so much media and so much press that I expect that they, when they were initially filming it, nobody knew who they were. Their names weren't big. I mean, they were big on Mom Talk, but they weren't they didn't have the level of fame that they currently have. And so I think having that level of fame that they currently have probably changes the cast dynamics and probably changes how they interact with each other because they all want screen time. And so, to get screen time, you need to scream and yell and create problems. And so, again, I am just supposing that that is going to happen. I may wait and see some reviews before I decide if I'm gonna delve into season 2 or not.
I saw a couple reviews.
Okay.
They were great.
I didn't expect that they would be.
But, to each his own. Some people do enjoy this kind of thing.
Well, the article that I have associated with this news story that I put up on the Facebook was I want to say it was from like the Hollywood Reporter or something like that. They were interviewing the producer of the show. So now the producer of this show actually happened to be an executive producer on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So that should probably tell you all you really need to know about that. And he says they shared like Kim Kardashian back in the early days when 99% of her life was on camera. So he does say, they are very open and they're really not holding anything back. But here's what is really interesting that he says. He says, I would love for a member of the church who works within the church, whether that's a bishop or who's ever in charge, to come shoot with us and share their perspective on all of this, whatever that perspective is. I would love that. I encourage it. It's been very challenging to find a voice for that side.
Are you mean the state presidents in that area aren't lining up to be on Mormon Wives?
I know, it's hard to believe.
Unbelievable.
Well, and he says that in response to this show has gotten a lot of backlash from active members of the church, especially the women who have said, that does not resemble my life at all.
Wow.
And which is if you are talking mainstream Mormonism, mainstream active, yes, then those women don't probably represent mainstream at all. What the producer says is he says, look, all of these women have, whether or not they practice in a mainstream way, they all have this faith, they all have this background, they all have beliefs. He kind of looks at it as more the global umbrella of Mormonism, where you have people on all sorts of different spectrums. But again, that's why he is wanting someone in leadership to come and be on his show. And oddly enough, no one's bit.
Yeah, I think if you want to know what the leaders of the church think about the church, there's other avenues to get that than on True Lives of Mormon Wives.
Exactly. And you may recall the church did a specific press release where they said, there's some media out there. They didn't call out Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but they did say, there's some media out there that might not really accurately represent us. We'd encourage you, if you want to know more about us, to maybe go talk to someone who might accurately represent us. So
yeah.
Anyway, we will see. It, like I said, maybe I will do a return and report. I don't know yet.
You do that with your sister.
Yeah, I will be doing that with my sister. So
I can already report. I'm not going to watch it.
Okay. All right. Next story.
All right. This is a lovely story. This comes from the Church News. Latter-day Saint star punt returner Britton Covey brings faith into his NFL locker. So this is a great story. As previously mentioned, I am a diehard BYU fan.
Yes.
Britton Covey did go to the U. That doesn't mean he's not a good guy. There are
now
some.
He is of the Coveys of the Stephen Covey line, right?
Yeah. Well, there's more than just Stephen Covey. But there's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch.
I went to high school with some of the Coveys, and they were great people. So he fits the mold of the Coveys. He's representing both the family and the church well.
Okay.
So this article is talking about how he is going to get an award from the city of Philadelphia, from an interfaith organization in the city of Philadelphia, because he's done such a great job being a proponent of interfaith relations and things like that in Philadelphia. So first of all, the article talks about how the Philadelphia Eagles this year, basically as a team, they had a very significant kind of religious group within the team. They would send each other text messages and videos. They'd share things back and forth. They'd have some team prayers, and and things like that. They'd say scriptures, which made me think, the Eagles won the Super Bowl this year.
Yes.
And oddly enough, the team that they beat is the other NFL team that gets a lot of church-related pub, as it were, thanks to Coach Reed.
Exactly.
Right? And the way we've seen articles before about how he kind of subtly incorporates the gospel method into his coaching, right?
Do you think we're gonna see a lot of articles about Kellen Moore now that he is the lead coach of the Saints?
Right. That'll happen. And,
okay.
And Kellen Moore was a member of the Eagles last year.
That's right.
So he was part of the.
Forgot. He was one of the assistant coaches.
So he was part of this group doing all this stuff. I'm sure he was in on it too, right? So anyway, Britton Covey, by the way, has been traded. No, he was a free agent. He didn't get traded. He just signed a free agent contract with the LA Rams.
Oh, okay.
So the sad thing is that the Interfaith Philadelphia nonprofit organization is going to give him this award, and if he's lucky, he'll get to join by Zoom from Los Angeles because he's there with his new team.
Aww.
So, but there's some great. It's a really long article. We don't have time to go through it all, but there's a couple of really good quotes from Britton Covey. He says, "Faith, when exercised the right way, brings out the best in humanity. I believe that belief in a higher power usually brings out the best in people and moves people to do things for others that they wouldn't naturally be pushed to do. So I am an advocate of faith in all areas."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So there's a picture in the article with Kellen Moore, their backup quarterback.
Okay.
He played at Stanford. He's also a member of the church. And then Britton Covey, and then an offensive lineman, Laken Bakalahi. I do not know where he played for college, but he is also a member of the church and returned missionary. So they had a nice little core of members on the Eagles.
We are really representing on the Eagles.
There we go.
But apparently now we've diversified.
Well, at least half of them have left. Yes.
Yeah, we've diversified.
We're gonna share the love with other teams.
Missionary opportunities.
Yep. So anyway, that article is on the Church News, and I highly recommend it. It's a good read.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the historic meeting house in southern Utah.
So this one was interesting. This is from the Fox 13, which is the Salt Lake TV channel.
Yes.
And they got basically a call from a concerned viewer that they had heard that the Pine Valley Meeting House in Washington County, at southwestern Utah, where St. George is, the Pine Valley Meeting House was going to be torn down. Are you aware of the Pine Valley Meeting House?
I have never heard of the Pine Valley Meeting House.
Let me tell you about the Pine Valley Meeting House.
Please do.
I have been there.
Okay.
I went there a few years ago with a family trip. My family, my siblings, and my parents. And we went down there, and my oldest sister is married to a person also named Larson, oddly enough.
Okay.
And but
so she didn't have to change her name.
She didn't have to change her name.
Wow.
No. So
that's convenient.
Very convenient. So very confusing for the kids when the teacher asks what your mom's maiden name is. So no, maiden name. Do you know what maiden name is? Yes, we know what a maiden name is. So anyway,
she's Larson squared.
Yep, Larson squared. So anyway, my brother-in-law is a descendant of Ebenezer Bryce, of Bryce Canyon fame.
Oh.
Ebenezer Bryce was a shipbuilder, and he also built the Pine Valley Chapel.
So now, approximately when did this Pine Valley Chapel come into being?
1868.
Ho, ho, ho.
Now, the thing that's special about it is saints have been meeting in this chapel since 1868. Continuously, and that is believed to be the longest continuously occupied church house in the entire church.
Wow, I had no idea. Well, no wonder people were concerned if they thought it was going to be torn down.
Right. So it's a lovely little chapel. It's cute, and the cool thing with it is you go up and you can, if they let you see the roof structure, it kind of looks like the upside down hull of a ship because Ebenezer Bryce was a shipbuilder, right? So he got asked to help build this chapel, and he knows how to build ships.
You do what you know.
He's like, well, this makes a strong hull, so I'll flip it over upside down, make a strong roof. So
is it just one room for the chapel?
No, there's one main room for the chapel. There's some other smaller rooms in the back, and there's upstairs, and so it is an actual building. It's not just a chapel, but the chapel is the main area.
So if they're using it today, how do they use it? Where you've got, primary and young women's and Sunday school.
As I recall, there's some little outbuildings and stuff, and I don't expect that it's a huge ward down there. It's a very small town. It's up in the mountains above St. George.
Okay.
It's a cute little place. Anyway, Fox 13 sent a reporter down.
That's how big of a deal this was.
To check it out. That's right. And what do you do when you want to know what the scoop is with the church in the local area? You call the stake president. And that's what they did. And the stake president set the
Or
record
you
straight.
could just go to your local swig down
Or-
there.
Sure. I don't know if there's a swig in Pine Valley.
Okay, well, maybe
it's
not.
pretty small. But anyway, so the stake president sets the record straight. He says that, in fact, the rumors are false.
Okay.
What is true is they are going to vacate the building. It is going to stop being used as a chapel.
Oh.
It is going to be taken over by the historical arm of the church and used as a historic site, which it kind of already is, because we went during the week and there was a person there that took us on a tour, right? It's kind of part historical site and part chapel functional, right? And so now it's just going to be all historical and no longer functional. So
okay, I'm kind of sad that it's not going to be functional. That's got to be a really cool place to go to church.
I'm sure it is. And
and again, I understand why the church architecturally has all their buildings the same. I get it. It's efficient. It makes sense. But it really is fun to go to attend sacrament meeting in a building that is not cut from the cookie cutter.
That is right. And it is a cool little place. So
That's
the good
very
news
cool.
is it is going to be preserved. You can go to it. You either got to go north from St. George or kind of southwest from Cedar City to get there. It's a little bit off the beaten path, but you can see it. There was one other quote I got to mention that cracked me up. So the reporter goes down there and there's a couple people checking it out. And one guy is there. He's from the Czech Republic. He says, in Europe, we have a lot of churches. So I just wanted to see and maybe compare a little bit and see how it looks like here. Been to Europe?
I have been to Europe.
You know how old the churches are there?
Hundreds of years.
A little bit older than 1868. So I thought, I don't know how impressed this guy was with the little church from the 1800s. Although, to be fair, many of those old churches in Europe, they kind of fallen under they got Monty Python. You remember Monty Python, the Holy Grail, where they build it and then it sank into the swamp, and they build again and it sank into the swamp, and they build again and it burnt down, and then it sank into the swamp, and then they build it again. So some of the churches in Europe are like that.
They're not as old as they really
right.
are.
You're like, this church goes back to the 1300s, except for when it burned down in the 1400s. And then we rebuilt
Notre Dame.
it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. So, but there are also plenty of actually old churches. But anyway, that just cracked me up that this guy from Europe came out looking for old churches in the Western U.S. And I'm like,
you leveled down.
Yeah. Great place.
Okay. Kazakhstan.
Me again. Wow. I'm on a roll.
You are on a roll.
This caught my attention because it said the words Latter-day Saints and Kazakhstan in the same sentence. Tell me what you know about Kazakhstan, Tiffany.
I know nothing about Kazakhstan. This is going to sound horrible. I couldn't even find it on a map.
All right. Well,
I'd have to Google that.
A few years ago, I couldn't either. If you want to learn world geography, there's this little game called Worldle, not Wordle, Worldle.
Okay.
And it shows the outline of a country, and you guess what a country, and that tells you how far away you are off, and then you got to dial your way in, and then.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So you kind of use Google Maps. It's great for learning world geography, though. Curiously, Americans are not strong in Central Asia and Africa.
Now, if they had one for the outline of the shapes of the states in America, I could totally do that one.
They do have that one. It's called Statal.
Okay, well, see that one I'm pretty sure I could do. But I'm going to admit my ignorance and I'm so American that I can't help myself. That I don't know much outside the states.
So Kazakhstan, it's in eastern kind of central Asia, I would say, just west of China, south of Russia, kind of squeezed in between India, China, and Russia, if you will, right in there, up in the mountains.
Well, they're geographically then in a very interesting position.
They are far away from it all, and there are a grand total of 200 members of the church in Kazakhstan, and there are missionaries there. They're part of the Russia Ekaterinburg mission.
Okay.
And they've had some service activities there. So the first thing they did, they had some missionaries go to a shelter for basically women and children that have gone through some sort of abuse, and they've gone to the shelter for refuge. And the missionaries go there and they teach children about hygiene and health with puppets. And like, how to wash your hands and how you eat healthy food and stuff like that. And they do it in a cute and fun way, and they make the children laugh. And
that actually sounds really fun.
That does sound fun. That's, missionary work. Yeah. It's not all about knocking on doors.
No,
do a puppet show for the kids. Sign me up.
a lot about service.
Yeah, so they did that, and then they also did another one similarly where they went and visited children with special needs and just kind of visited them and cheered them up and talked to them and things like that. So that was service project number
Okay.
one. And service project number two is there was an interfaith citywide cleanup, and this is in the town of, I believe it's called Almaty.
Okay.
Almaty. That is the largest city in Kazakhstan.
Okay.
And so they did a citywide cleanup. A lot of people attended. A lot of church members attended. 500 people overall attended. So you
Wow.
know it was not a majority of church members, because even if every member of the church went, they were still only 40%, and I don't
Exactly.
think every member of the church went.
Probably not.
So anyway, they were a part of a large interfaith group.
Yes.
I looked up some statistics.
Okay.
The city of Almaty is about 57% Muslim
Okay.
and about 18-ish% Christian.
Okay.
So we're a minority, but a significant minority.
Okay.
Christians are.
Christians
right?
are,
So,
yes.
But it is a majority Muslim. So I would guess that the Muslims and the Christians were getting together in this activity in Kazakhstan and cleaning up and learning about each other. I think that's awesome.
I think that's awesome too. And I think that just goes along with everything President Nelson's been asking us to do.
Exactly.
That could not be a more perfect example of President Nelson's words being put into action.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Our next story. The Osmonds.
Yay. I can get behind the Osmonds a lot more than the
Then
Secret
Real House,
Lives.
The Secret Lives.
Yeah.
So I did not know this. There apparently is a musical, and it is called The Osmonds, a new musical.
I did not know that either.
It was written by Jay Osmond.
I saw the headline, and the first thing I thought is, it's super new.
Yeah.
It's not super new.
That is what I thought too. So it's been around for a couple of years.
Like 3
Yeah,
years.
2 years. They have had over 200 performances in the last 2 years, but it's been in England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales.
Yep.
And so it has not been here in America. It's been overseas. And apparently, they have had critical acclaim and hundreds of 5-star reviews.
Yep.
So they have decided, based on that success in Europe, much like the migration in the early the 1800s from Europe over to America, we are going to bring the Osmonds back to America.
Or, as in the 1960s, the British invasion.
The British invasion, except they're not British.
Yeah, but it's coming from Britain.
They are
the actors
coming.
were British. I bet we're using Americans this time.
Anyway, so if you are bringing the Osmonds back to America, where's the most likely place you want to bring them?
You got to go to Provo.
You got to go to Provo, smack dab in Utah County, which is technically where the Osmonds got their start. So this musical they just announced is headed for its North American debut. It will be at the Covey Center for the Arts, keeping on our Covey
The
theme.
Cubbies are killing it today.
The Cubbies are killing it today. It will be at the Covey Center for the Arts, and it will be premiering next year. So it will run from March 12th to April 4th, 2026. So it's got about a 3-week run. There are preview performances on March 10th and 11th. Tickets are already on sale.
Go get 'em. Go
if
get 'em.
you want to go see the Osmond musical, I would suggest you probably get your tickets now. I mean, honestly, a 3-week run is not that long of a run. And Osmonds are big.
Yeah.
And Osmonds are big in Utah. And Osmonds are really big in Utah County.
Yeah, I think they're going to sell them out.
I think they're going to sell them
I think
out.
you're going to be looking at aftermarket tickets pretty quick.
Exactly. So the article goes on, again, I put this up on the Facebook page, and talks about why Jay wrote the musical and his inspiration behind it. And it just kind of goes through how the family started and their musical career in the 60s and 70s. So honestly, I'm super tempted to go buy tickets. I'm not going to lie.
I would like to, but I booked what I did. I booked some tickets for March this past week myself, but they were to go to Europe to visit my daughter.
Oh.
So I guess I could hurry and come back and then drive down to Utah and catch the last week. But
That's right. I'm going to, I may get online and see how much their tickets are, because I'm just that much of an Osmond fan that I would go see the Osmond musical.
Now, did you check out any of the reviews from Britain?
I did not check out any of the reviews for Britain.
I did. I checked a few of them out.
Okay, so what do they tell us?
So as the article said, almost all good.
Okay.
There was one that, continuing on the theme of The Guardian, remember the
Yes.
Guardian.ng? Well, the Guardian.uk was about the only one that was not as kind to the Osmonds.
Okay.
But, that's the big city paper, and they want, the big city critics, they want grit, and they want tension
Exactly.
and drama and all that stuff. And there just wasn't enough grit.
I'm
in
pretty
it.
sure that this is probably really sappy.
Well, it does go into
Yeah.
the hard times,
Yeah.
right? The Osmonds, they had their ups and
They
downs.
they've had their ups and
It
downs.
mentions the dad that was in the military that kind of gave him the military drill to
Yeah.
become showbiz stars
Mhm.
and stuff. But apparently not a grit for the Guardian. But all the other reviews I read, it's like, oh, this was so fun. I love this. This is
Awesome.
great. Osmonds.
Okay.
So,
All right. We cannot leave this week without talking about BYU getting a new athletic director.
all right.
Since you are the BYU super fan.
Okay, so BYU does have a new athletic director. It's not a terribly surprising choice. There were several articles in the Deseret News that I saw. I'm sure there were others in other Utah papers. Just a quick recap. His name is Brian Santiago. Oddly enough, he did not play sports for BYU. I thought he did, but I think I was confusing him with probably a relative who did.
Okay.
There was a Santiago that played at BYU, but it was not him. He played at, what is now UVU, was UVSC back then.
Okay.
In Orem. And then he played a couple years in Fresno State. He was a basketball player.
Okay.
But soon after playing his basketball career, he got hired at BYU. He's been there since 1997.
Oh, wow.
And he's been an assistant basketball coach, and then he's been assistant, he's been a lot of places and over a lot of sports. He's got the pedigree for the job. So it was not a surprise when he was named the athletic director.
But wasn't there like a little bit of controversy
There-
about him?
There was.
So what is the controversy about him?
So he, as mentioned, he is a former athlete, and he has been known to have a fiery temperament, as some athletes are wont to have.
Which may not be the best quality to have in your athletic director.
Yes.
When cooler heads sometimes have to prevail.
That's right. So, but this last article that I read, the most recent one that I appreciated, it was written by a longtime sports coverage person at the Deseret News named Jay Drew. He said that in his press conference that he acknowledged that he has his detractors and people that are concerned based on incidents from the past. But he also pointed out and say, you know what? I've been here 27 years, and I am not the same person today that I was 27 years ago.
And that's,
I'd say that's fair for me, probably fair for you.
I would say that is probably fair for most anyone.
Yes. And so,
I would not want to be judged by my deeds 27 years ago.
exactly, or even 10 or 15 in some cases.
Exactly.
So
I would like to think I've evolved and grown.
Right. So one incident that that this article points out is at the BYU Arizona State football game this year, which was in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Arizona State won. It was a close game. It was tight at the finish, and things got a little crazy at the end. There were some fans coming out of the stands. There was some taunts. There was some penalties. The game was over, and then it wasn't. Then it was, and then it wasn't. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff that could rankle the ire of BYU coaches and officials.
Yes.
And the columnist in this said that, to most people's surprise, Brian Santiago kept a very level and cool head and was not provoked by that incident. So he offered that as an example that when he says, I have grown as a person, I've leveled up and I can handle this. And that gives us cause to say, maybe we can believe him. But in any case, he's definitely qualified for the job. And, when you're in athletics, you probably do want a little bit of fire. A little bit of drive. But
you do.
Hopefully he's learned to temper that, and we'll see what happens.
Now, I have a question about something he said in the press conference.
Okay.
And I want to know your feelings on this.
All right.
In the press conference, he was very rah football. That is the core. That is the staple. That is what we do. How did you feel about that statement?
Well, so that's in response, I think, to the concern that because his pedigree is in basketball. Right? That some people are concerned, his basketball is his favorite, right? But we all know there's in college sports, there's like number 1 football.
Yes.
Like number 3 men's basketball, and then number like 20 through 100 everything else, right? As far as generating money. I'm not saying they're not important and the athletes aren't talented, but that's just the reality of where the money comes from, right? All the other sports, they just don't have the exposure and the money that football and men's basketball bring in, and especially football.
And I definitely agree with you there. If you're looking at where the money flow is going to come from football and basketball.
Right.
I guess I was just thinking about some of these other athletic teams at BYU.
Right.
Like, let's talk track and field and their cross country team. I mean, they have absolutely stellar.
Yeah, they won the national championships this year. The cross country did.
They did, and Ed Eyestone, I think he should be coach of the year.
I mean, he's a rock star.
He is a rock star, and he is doing fantastic things. We've already talked about their volleyball coaches, both men's and women's, and how successful they are at volleyball. And then, of course, Kevin Young. That was a huge hire for them in basketball. And he got off to a little rocky start, was trying to get his footing, but he kind of swung it around at the end.
Right.
And so, there is a lot, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of really good things going on with sports at BYU.
And I am not worried about, Brian Santiago neglecting the other sports, because he's been with the department for 27 years, and he's been over all of these, quote unquote minor sports, right? So he's been involved with all of them.
Oh, and then we can't forget their women's soccer team. Their women's soccer team is fantastic
too. They did
too.
Great. Yeah, they made it all the way to the championship a few years ago.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that finishes it up for stories for us.
Nice.
But I do have a Mormon behaving badly before we get into our favorite things. I know.
Wanda.
I know. So, Wanda Barzee, she is one of the kidnappers of Elizabeth Smart, and she made some headlines recently.
Yeah.
So, she is obviously on the sex offender registry list in Utah. She served her time in prison. She was paroled. She's out in the community. But again, she's on the sex offender registry list. And when you are on the sex offender registry list, there are certain places you are not allowed to go. Parks being one of them. Well, poor little Wanda. She found herself in a couple of parks. She went to Liberty Park and she went to Sugar House Park.
Two of the biggest parks in Salt Lake.
Now, she wasn't really doing anything in the park, but just kind of hanging out. And
why did she go there?
Well, that's where we're coming to. Why did she go there? Because she was commanded by the Lord.
Now, you gotta give her credit for just going all in with
She's staying on brand.
Yeah, she's on brand. Because if you get caught and you're kind of, well, I really miss going to the park, and I miss the ducks, and no.
The Lord told me to.
Yeah. Oh man.
Anyway, so she, of course, was arrested because this is a violation if you are a sex offender. And then, of course, Elizabeth Smart had a response as well, saying this is why she never should have been let out of prison, because she still thinks she's being commanded by the Lord to do things that she shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So she is our Mormon behaving badly this week.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to favorite things. I'm going to let you go first. I always let my guests go first with their favorite things.
Is there going to be enough light for me to show this?
I think so. The problem when I turn on, we started out and it was light in here, and now it's gotten a little dark. Let me turn on this light and see if this will. Sometimes when I turn on the light, it washes us out too much. Yeah. Let me turn it like that. There.
All right.
Okay.
So, 4 years I have struggled with what to do with my neckties.
Which I can appreciate, because let me tell you, I struggle on my husband's behalf of what to do with his neckties.
Yes. So I had this weird old hanger thing that I found in a closet on my mission. I've been using it for 35 years.
Okay.
And I just decided, you know what? There's got to be something better. So I am a mechanical design engineer. And so I got onto my CAD software and I saw something online actually. And it was just get a hanger and get curtain rod loops and put them on the hanger and then hang your ties off that.
Okay.
I did that, but the problem was the hanger wound up kind of U-shaped at the bottom. Looked like about a week of that it was going to snap in half.
Okay.
And it was very difficult to get at them. So I'm like, all right, I need something sturdier. So I came up with this.
This is so fantastic. You walked in tonight with this and I about freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh. I need this for my husband's ties.
Right.
So tell
Now-
us how you did this.
Okay, so I'm going to try and be descriptive because I personally frequent the Spotify more than I do the YouTube. So,
Yes.
if you do not have video, this is basically something that
And you know what? I'm going to have you. We have the ties blocking the microphone,
Oh,
and so I need
Good
to have
idea.
you get closer to the microphone
that's a good
because
idea.
if you're going to be descriptive, I want the listeners to hear your description.
Thank you. So, this is basically a coat hanger type thing, only it's just got a solid rib at the top, and it's just like a solid bar of plastic attached to a coat hanger. And in the bottom of the bar, I've got 24 holes into which I have placed these plastic Walmart shower curtain hooks. And then hanging from each hook is a necktie
And I must say, hanging in colored order.
in colored order. Yes.
Very impressive.
Yes.
Speaking from a woman who color codes her dresses in her closet, and they are in all color coded.
Right.
I appreciate this.
So I actually have two. So each one will hold 24.
Okay.
So the bad news is I did design this and I 3D printed it at work. And so they are not for sale on Amazon.
Don't go on Amazon and find
However, if you email the podcast and you really want to know how to get one of these, I could, and you have the ability to load a CAD file into a 3D printer, I could share a CAD file with you.
Okay.
So Tiffany, you let me know if anybody emails the podcast wanting
I-
a CAD file.
I will let you know. You know, I was just thinking about this. I'm like, how can I copy this idea for Darren? I have wooden hangers. And so I'm thinking if I got the little shower curtain rings and I put them on wooden hangers and maybe put like a little spacer so they didn't all come together, I could totally do that with a wooden hanger with the shower curtain things. And because it's a wooden hanger, I wouldn't have the sag feature.
There you go.
So I think I'm going to try and do that with one of my wooden hangers for him.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I'll return and report.
All right.
Okay. And then you also brought us a food
I
thing
brought
tonight.
you a treat.
Oh, I love it.
This is also an Asian treat.
Okay.
This is called Meiji Gummy Choco.
Okay.
So they come in this little cylindrical container here. And basically they are little chocolate covered grape gummies.
Oh.
I love me grape gummies. I love me chocolate.
Okay.
You wouldn't think those might necessarily be a match, but you try
Okay.
those and tell me what you
Okay.
think. They're a little bit chewy. But
Okay. That's actually really good. I am a big fan of grape too. It must be because we're children of the 80s. Grape was a big deal in the 80s. Do you remember grape bubble yum?
oh yeah.
Okay. That is delicious. I actually like that. Okay.
Also my favorite. If you Google Meiji Gummy Choco, you can find them. They are not available regularly in the United States. You can get them. They are not cheap.
Okay.
They are cheaper in Asia,
All right.
but they're good.
They are good.
They are my favorite thing.
All right. I am going to share my favorite thing tonight. This is an Oreo Thin. Have you ever
Nice.
had an Oreo Thin?
I have had regular Oreo thins.
Okay, so this is an Oreo Thin. I really like the Oreo Thin because the cookie is about a third of what the normal cookie is, and it's just got a little smattering of frosting. And so you can have 4 of these cookies, and it's only 140 calories.
Nice.
So they have them in several flavors. They have them in the regular, they have them in mint, they have them in tiramisu. But what I have tonight is my favorite, which is the Irish cream.
Ooh,
So
non-alcoholic, I'm sure.
oh, absolutely. It's Oreo. So
Right.
I am going to let you try one and you tell me what you think of the
Mm.
Oreo Thin Irish cream.
Well, I will say you can immediately smell that it
Yes.
is not your run-of-the-mill Oreo.
No.
All right. I'm going to try that. It's almost a little butterscotchy,
A little
a
butterscotchy.
little creamy. Oddly enough, Irish cream is not a flavor that I have a lot of.
Well, and,
So I'm
and
not quite sure what it's supposed. If this is what Irish cream tastes like, I couldn't tell you, but it does taste good.
that I will tell you, that is what Irish cream tastes like.
Okay.
It is very good. I really like it. I just bought the tiramisu. I haven't tried the tiramisu yet. I've tried the mint. The mint are fantastic. I've never bought the regular ones. I've only bought the thins and the flavors. Anyway, but it's a fun treat. You can have a little cookie. It satisfies you. Not a ton of calories. So
It was good.
anyway. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us tonight.
All righty.
David, thank you so much for joining me. As always, it was fantastic. And one of the things I love about recording with you is you come so prepared. It's
Oh,
very nice.
Well, thank you.
So
I enjoy it a lot.
I appreciate it. I knew I didn't have to worry this week when I knew I was going to record with you, because it's been kind of a crazy week with graduation and all of the activities coming up. So appreciate you joining us on the podcast tonight.
You bet.
Listeners, if you want to reach out, you can reach out at contact@thisweekinmormons.com, and we will we'll answer your questions. Fill our mailbox up with good things, bad things, hate mail. We don't really care.
We can take it.
We can take it. And as always, you can find us on Facebook. I generally have been the one adding a lot of stories to Facebook, although there's a couple other contributors. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube. And so we appreciate everybody's continuing support of This Week in Mormons. Thank you.
Bye.